welcome to the channel. I'm Summer. Today's video is a tutorial for a do-it-yourself ponytail bob haircut. You guys asked for more ponytail cuts and you have got them. I have spent hours playing around with different ways to create this cut via the ponytail method. This cut is specifically meant to make your hair look as thick and full as possible. We are going to be using last week's tutorial as inspo, and I will be comparing to see which cut comes out best, the Stylist in salon version or the DIY. I can't wait to compare the results. With that said, let's get started. All right, so we are going to get started and I am so excited. First things first, you are going to want your hair to be wet. For this haircut, you're gonna get more control and getting your hair to glide right into your ponytails. It makes the hair also easier to cut with your scissors when it is wet versus dry. So I always recommend doing your hair cut with the ponytail wet. So what we're gonna do, this is gonna be a total of 7 ponytails. I think I counted right. So that might seem a little bit overwhelming, but there is a reason why I decided to do 7, because I felt like it gave the most accuracy to how I would section a client off in salon to get a more precise haircut, because the bob is a bit of a precise haircut, so that's what makes it a little bit of a challenge with a ponytail cut versus like your traditional longer layered look. So what we're gonna do, the first section we're gonna take is going to be where we have the comb right up against the head, and where the comb leaves the head, this is the parietal ridge, you are going to make a ponytail. So you'll place your comb, see where it leaves, kind of put your finger in the place, and then you're just gonna comb around the head, almost like a horseshoe. What you can do if you want is to come to the other side first. Place the comb on the head, use your finger to kind of guide you to where it leaves. And then you're just gonna meet through to the back and connect them. Now this haircut definitely is a cut you can do solo on your own at home. I will say you should invest, if you don't have like the right mirror setup in your house, I would invest in buying like a freestanding mirror. That way you can always see the back of your head, because you're gonna be standing in front of your own mirror at the house, but you'll need a mirror in the back of your head if you're doing this on your own at home. If you have a friend, spouse, daughter, whoever, they can also assist you as well, and this is still nice and easy of a cut. So what you're gonna do, now that you have your first section, again where the comb leaves the head, you'd wanna look in the mirror and take a look to make sure that your sections here are level. So I always will just stand in the mirror on my own, I put my fingers in place, and I visually will see that they look nice and even on both sides. And then you're just gonna comb this and you're gonna start forming your ponytail. And the reason why you want the hair wet is because with your comb or wet brush, you're really able to pull nice, even tension, and you want that hair completely flat and smooth. So you want it to glide back, nice and clean, and you want this under part of the ponytail to not be too lifted as possible. You wanna try to get that pretty smooth where you're over directing everything back, because with this haircut, like I said, this is meant to have a lot of thickness and length. So we wanna make sure we're over directing so we're not jeopardizing that perimeter. And then we're just gonna place in our ponytail. And then once you have your ponytail in, you would wanna make sure that it's in the center of the head. So what you can do is you can adjust by pulling one side or the other to move that ponytail over, but you want it as close to the center as possible. And then once you have that done, you're just gonna clip this up out of the way, and we are going to move into our next sections. So because this is meant to be a nice thick and full bob, we wanna keep this perimeter line nice and long. We're not doing a bunch of face framing. It's gonna sort of look like mine. That's what I based last week's video off as well. So what you're gonna do, and this is where we do the extra ponytails, you're gonna come, and from this back point of the head, basically at your crown area, you're just gonna glide your comb forward, taking a slight diagonal. We can take a little bit more there. That's gonna be right behind your ear. And you're gonna do the same on the other side, and we are gonna break this whole section into 2 sections. So before I do that, I'm gonna get my other one together. So the reason why I opt to do these side ponytails different, I found that when I was over directing everything back, it ended up making like this really long, severe angle going towards the front, where we want to keep more of an evenness. You're going to have a slight angle, but by doing the sides in their own ponytails, that's going to help you get more control with where your length is, and it just makes it easier rather than one big swoop. So what you're going to do is we're just gonna break this side into 2 separate sections. So you're just gonna go right down the middle. So right at the tip of the ear. You're gonna comb this down nice and flat. You want this flat to the head. And you're gonna take your hair tie, and all you wanna do is secure it in place. You don't need to tie it super tight. You wanna be able to make sure that hair stays nice and flat, where if you do it too tight, you might get a little bit of a buckle underneath here. Just nice and flat. And same thing on this, comb that hair straight down and secure with your hair tie. And I like to try to have these hair ties kind of in the same position. You could have it a little bit lower if you want, but I just try to put them in line with each other. I feel like it keeps it nice and clean. You're gonna push that forward and do the same on the other side. So you're just gonna separate it in half and tie with your hair tie. So we have our first 5 sections done, so 1 on top, and then 2 ponytails on each side. And now we're gonna move into the back area. And I'm gonna explain this sectioning as well. The reason why I'm gonna break this into 2 more sections is in salon, when we are creating a bob, you have your perimeter that's nice and flat. But as you move up the head to create that rounded shape, we do tend to bring the hair out at a 45-degree angle. So I'm trying to mimic that with this next section. And we're going to use basically where the head starts to curve, so right at that occipital bone, which usually is sort of right in the middle area of the ear. We're gonna use that as our guideline to just go straight across here. You can use your fingers or your comb. And you match up on the other side, and we're gonna comb this nice and smooth. We're gonna be flattening out the hair on top. And with your pony, where on the top, I try to leave it more flat in this section. We wanna create a little bit of lift because again, think of it in salon. The stylist is pulling it out towards them to create a little bit of an angle. So that's what we're gonna keep in mind when placing in our ponytail. So the hair underneath is kind of coming out towards you and you're combing the rest down. And then we are going to tie into place, right in the center of the head. So once that ponytail is in, you wanna again look at it in the back, reposition it to center if you need to. Again, move with one side to the other to shift it. And then that's gonna clip up out of the way as well. And we will make our final ponytail. And for this, it's nice and easy. We don't wanna create any elevation. This is going to be our base. Got a rogue hair here. Let me clip that back out of the way. All right, and then for your back section, we're just gonna get this nice, flat and smooth. You wanna think of it like you're doing just a really low ponytail on your own hair. You don't wanna create any lift here. And we are just going to tie into place. And then tighten that up, make sure it's centered, and we are good with our sectioning. All right, and then just go over the sectioning with you guys one final time before we cut. We have our top ponytail here that we have taken our parting with where the comb leaves the head. Then we have 2 side partings on each side That's gonna help us create our perimeter going forward. And then we have 2 more sections in the back, one to create our base, the second to help start creating that rounded shape that we have with a bob. So you're gonna clip your top sections out of the way. If you are worried about cutting these sides, you can simply clip them as well. Just slide a duckbill clip in to secure them. And we're finally gonna get to cutting. So we're gonna come in here to create our perimeter, and how long or short you want it is all based on your preference, but typically with a bob, you wanna be kind of right in line off of the shoulders in the back. So I'm gonna cut basically just below where this brown line is at the base of this mannequin's neck. And I'm gonna use the wide side of my comb just because it's easier to work through this wet hair. And you could fan it out a little if you want. And we're gonna come down. I'm right up to my guide here. And we are just gonna cut. And I'm gonna first actually do a blunt cut. So what you wanna do is cut that. You're gonna wanna resection though here so you get more control, because if you are cutting past your knuckle here, so when you get to the starting point, the hair is moved past this knuckle and you're gonna lose control, and that's what's gonna create maybe a longer look. So drop your hands, come back in, follow your guide, and cut. And we have our guide here. So what I like to do now, after I cut each section, you're gonna come in with a texturizing shear. I really recommend using a texturizing shear. You want something with a lot of teeth, and you're just gonna soften this up. I did find some scissors on Amazon that I bought and was trying out when I was doing my practice ones that I'll link below, that I was actually fairly impressed with how sharp they were for being, I think they were like $30 for both shears together, so very affordable. And then I'm just gonna come in and lightly point cut with my standard shear. And that is looking good. Okay, so now we're gonna move into the secondary section. And what I like to do is I cut in sections for these ponytails. You get more control. It's easier to see your guide, because trying to take one big chunk, especially if you have a lot of hair, is going to be very hard to get through with your shears. So what we're going to do, when you're creating this bob, you wanna think about, you have this angle with your comb here, okay? You wanna think about it goes, tucks in to get that roundness so you get that curve with the hair here. So what I'm gonna do is we are going to hold this out vertically. I'm not going to cut horizontally. The bottom is fine to cut horizontally because you wanna create a nice, good, clean line, but through the rest of the cut, a horizontal, where you're cutting straight across this way, this would be vertical, where your scissors are pointing up. Vertical is going to be much softer, which is gonna create a much nicer flow, where if you do everything horizontal, it's gonna be, it leads to much more of like a harsh line, even with blending with your texturizing shears. So to cut this piece, your first section, when we are in salon cutting, we tend, like I said, you're pulling everything out at a slight angle to create that round shape. So you wanna use your bottom guide. You're not gonna pull it straight out from the head at 90. You want it angled down, sort of like think of a little triangle here of your head going down, if that makes sense. And what you're going to do is you're gonna pull your next piece while this is out at an angle down into it. And using my comb, I'm gonna show you guys, you want this to curve in to that head so you have this nice angular shape. So I'm gonna spin her to cut because it's easier for you guys to see it on the other side. We've got the rest of our hair clipped up. You're gonna pull this out, come down at an angle, and you're gonna cut up into your section. If you have to do it twice, that's fine. Just remember to keep that angle. You'll see your guide, cut. And so, as you can see, just with that first section, when I bring this out, it lines up into this very nice angle. It's not Even if you pull it up straighter, it still has an angle. This is a little bit longer. This is a little bit shorter. If I use my comb, look at this nice angle that you have here. That's what's gonna help create that rounded shape. So now you're gonna take your next section, break it in half. We're gonna do the same thing, but you already have set your guide here, so you're just gonna pull it out, similar angle to how you were holding it before. We see that we are in line. You're gonna cut straight up into it. Let out your last section of hair, and same thing. And then after you have cut your section, you can go in with your thinning shears, and you're just gonna soften this up. I said this in my last ponytail tutorial, the more teeth you have on your shear, the softer it's going to be. It's gonna remove less hair. But I wanna show you the difference in horizontal versus vertical. I don't know how well you'll be able to see it, but this overall has a little bit more softness to it, where this is a much more harder, blunt line. In person, I can really tell. I don't know how well it shows up on camera, but we are going to move into our last section on the top now. And what we're gonna do is the same thing as we were doing before, where we're bringing it out at that diagonal. You wanna create that shape between all three ponytails so you get that nice curve. And we are gonna, again, break this into sections because this is a lot of hair here. So we're coming out, you're extending down, and you're gonna have an angle going in from your top piece to the bottom piece. Create that angle and cut right up in to that hair. So now when you pull all three of these out, you can see the shape that we get. That's that graduation that's in a bob, and that's gonna flow really nice when we go to blow dry. And just follow your guide that you've already cut. And then what I like to do once I have created this, I'll just skim through again and even it out a little bit more, and you can take it from both sides too. That helps, but that looks a lot better. And now the final thing we're going to do with this ponytail, because this is how I would cut in salon. So in salon, this would be cut, this top ponytail, in half, and the rest would still be forward, but because it's a ponytail cut, we do have to adjust. But in salon, all this hair technically gets brought down to this middle section of hair. You comb it down and you cut it. But then what I do is I go in and I start to create long layers, and I over direct everything straight up. This, we don't need to worry about it much because look, when we pull up, we have a little bit of an angle, but this top ponytail, we wanna soften it. So you're gonna just come straight up with it at an angle, and you are just gonna, with your shears pointed to the ceiling, cut straight up, and that's just gonna help to soften your corner a little bit when we go to dry this later. And it creates just a little bit more of a layer internally to help it curve into that nice rounded shape of a bob. So now our final steps here are cutting our sides. We have our ponytails nice and loose. They're nice and flat. You could readjust these if you needed to, like if you felt they fell out, just retie them. And what we're going to do one at a time is come back to this back perimeter to blend in our sides and our length. So we're gonna use our comb to give us an idea, and you could angle it down if you wanted to. If you were nervous about taking out too much length in your sides, you could always cut it more at an angle, or you could come up a little bit more. I don't like cutting straight across in this section. I do like to angle it just so slightly so you create more softness and it'll blend in with the back because these points are gonna flow a little longer. But all you're gonna do is over direct this back to your guide. You could even just grab the corner if you wanted. and you're just gonna angle that down to wherever you're comfortable with. Again, if you are nervous about removing too much length, you can always leave it longer, and we're just gonna cut right up into that. And that blends really well. And then all you're gonna do is take your next ponytail, and you're gonna do the same thing. You could angle it down if you want to preserve your length, and cut. So we have a nice flow that's gonna go from the back to the front. I personally feel like that's a little long, especially this front ponytail. So what you could do if you wanna square it off, come here to the shoulders. I have my guide here, and you're just gonna cut. So that flows around much better. And then you can, to match up on the other side, come to the front. You would be looking at yourself in the mirror, and you can pull these two front ponytails to meet each other in the middle, and you can use that as your guide for here, your reference point, and cut. Let that fall. That's looking like it matches up very nice. And then you are just gonna blend in the back how we did the other side. This gets brought back to this baseline. Angle it down and cut. And then what you'll do is you'll take a look at these two and see if you need to nick your corners at all. That's looking barely right here. The stylist in me is coming out. So we have now, all of our ponytail sections are cut. I don't worry about softening these side pieces because again, we want them nice and blunt. So we have a nice thick and full look. And so what I'm gonna do is let everything down. I'm gonna give it a blowout, same blowout that I did on the mannequin I cut last week. And then we're gonna compare the two, which I cannot wait to see how they look. Okay, we have both bobs here now, and we are gonna start with the comparison first because I want you guys to see the difference between the two, what they look like, more so what the ponytail one really looks like after you get it blown out and styled, because there are some things that we're going to need to tweak. So I wanna show you the comparison first, and then we'll go in and how to fix this one to make it look more even. As you can see, there's more length here, which that has to do with taking our ponytail, because in the front here with this type of bob, which this bob was mimicked after my hair, we have it all long around the face because we wanna maintain the most weight possible around this face. I like a nice thick going towards my face. It makes it look so thick and full because I don't have much hair under here. So this type of cut is great for people who want like all the hair in the world to fool people to thinking you have like super thick hair. That is what this cut is designed for, and that's what this one is based off of. But as you can see, we have more length here on our ponytail bob, and that's again because these ponytails come back to the front and we're maintaining this length. So we are going to have to do some stuff to blend this in. So as you can see from the side here, we have more length on this one, but they both do have that nice angled shape going in towards, they both have the nice rounded shape of a bob, which is so key to get for that true rounded shape, which this, and honestly, I know we've got to fix some things, but it really truly came out very nice for a ponytail cut. And then in the back is what I'm seeing is one of the biggest differences, and we're gonna break it down a little bit more. So in the back here, we have a much more thicker, full look. It's precisely cut. It really has this nice roundness, bouncy shape to create a nice, strong perimeter. Everything is blended in, where on the ponytail cut, it does not look bad per se, but there's definitely some things down in here that we need to clean up. You've got these hairs poking out underneath, which I had mentioned in the beginning when we were cutting this perimeter that would be an issue. And then we do need a little bit of blending to blend in the weight lines that you see. But we will fix that, but I just wanna show you guys the difference. Again, this is a little bit longer, and the reason I did it longer is I do feel like on your own at home to cut it up shorter like this, I do think it's a bit more challenging just because of the way you'd have to hold your hands. If you had somebody helping you, which is what I mentioned earlier too, if you have a spouse, friend, your son, daughter, whoever, to help you with this cut, you could bring it up a little bit shorter with the ponytail cut, but this is just such a nice, perfect, clean line where this we have to work on quite a bit. And then moving into where it was parted on the side, we again still do maintain like this nice flow. You can see we have way too much of an angle here where this just flows kind of everywhere going forward. And it just looks so thick and full. These are the same exact mannequin too, just to keep you guys in mind. So their hair density was the same. I colored them to be very similar to the two, but both came out nice. There's pros and cons to both, but overall, the ponytail cut is not bad. We just need to work on it a little bit more to get it cleaned up. So that's what we're gonna do. And then I'm gonna show you really quick just some slow-mo shots of both mannequins by themselves. Okay, so now that you guys got to see a nice slow-mo of them side by side, we are going to tweak this now to blend and even everything out. So I do wanna make note, I did part this on the side. So that's the one nice thing that is really great about these ponytail haircuts when you're taking all this hair back here into this crown section where we cut the top ponytail. That is to the center of the head. So that means when you go to let out the hair, you would flip it to however it is that you wear your hair. So if you part it on the left, you'd part it on the left. If you part it on the right, you'd part it on the right and blow dry it and style it. And then you're gonna be able to clean up your sides after the fact. So all you're gonna do to blend in your sides, we're gonna kind of go how I would do actually like in salon. But the beauty of doing those two ponytail sections is it does create a much cleaner line here for you. So if you find any pieces are popping out, you have such a better guide to follow through. So we have a little bit of a corner here. As you can see, when you pull this down, this hair here is sticking out. And all you're gonna do is blend in those lines. So you would comb your hair down. If you tilt your head over to the side, you're gonna see it a little bit better, but you would just match it up because you've already created your shape. You're just connecting the dots essentially. Because look at this, we have our shorter point here, I can even see. So it's shorter right here, and it's a little shorter up here, and you just need to fill in this line. So come down from your piece here. And that's blending in a lot better. So then all you're gonna do to connect this front piece, and again, this is longer because it was angled all the way back and we brought it down because again, we wanted to keep this angle in mind, and then we brought it up for a long layer. So all you're going to do is just even that out with your guide here, which is super easy. If you want to extend the length, you can by angling it, or you can square it off. If you're nervous, always angle forward and just cut right into that. So that still keeps a nice long line here. You have enough length for those who would want it shorter, so you can see, you would just come in and cut. And that just shortens it just perfectly, but it's still a nice full line coming towards the face. So what you would wanna do is repeat that on the other side as well. And when we finish our sides, we're then gonna get into the back because that is where we need to do the most work really. And that's gonna be the most challenging part. Now this side, I will say, had more pieces that need to be cut. And again, all you would do is comb down. I can see all right here, my shorter pieces over here and over here, and we need to angle that up. And you just follow your guide. And you're gonna do the same thing through your side. So I'm bringing the hair down to more of this middle, I'm sorry, not the middle, to the part more so because we flipped it to a side part, and just clean up right in the middle of that. So with a bob ponytail cut, you are still going to have to do what, you know, one would consider a little bit of like traditional cutting to just even it out. But what we're gonna do is come into the back. So this is the hardest part of the cut, is the back. It actually came out really clean. When I had been practicing this on all the mannequins, I was practicing on dry hair, so with it wet, it really came out much, much better. So you would, in your mirror, you're gonna need 2 mirrors, or if you have a friend, you would look at this back and you can see these hairs here that are just lightly poking out and trying to stick out. And all you're gonna do is follow where that length is that you want. So I see we need to take out just these little guys poking out, and it's a little longer in this corner here. So I'll show you, I'm gonna spin, which is probably that mark I saw earlier. I can see my shorter point is right here. And then on here, it's shorter here. So you need to take out this little corner that you're just gonna do in small, slow sections. You could section off the rest of the hair if you want, because it might be easier for you to work through it, but just slow nips. This is when it's the most easy to have somebody helping you. Show them this video and they will know what to do. But that blended that in a lot better. Then you'd want to comb down. I got a little bit more I need to cut. So now all we have to do is, this doesn't look bad. Again, I think most people wouldn't notice it, but we have just the slightest shelf here that we need to texturize and thin out. So at home, what you would do is you would just grab where you see this shelf. So it's right here. And you are just gonna grab it, you're gonna pull it out from your head, and you're just gonna texturize with the thinning shears. You're not coming in, you're not gonna come in and just go straight across horizontally. You wanna keep your shears in at an angle. And you're just gonna soften. And as you cut, you're gonna only move your thumb, and you're gonna glide out while pulling on that thumb. And you're gonna do that through this top layer where you have a shelf, if you have a shelf, to just soften it up. All right, here we have our finished and final look after we went in and cleaned up the cut. A bob is a very difficult cut to try on your own, but it is possible following this ponytail method. I found the 7 sections to get you the cleanest cut for that round shape in the back, as well as making it easy to connect any unevenness you may experience. Here is again compared to my detailed in-salon bob. I did leave the DIY version a touch longer, as I think it's more realistic if you're doing it yourself. If you have someone helping you, it will be easier to bring up the length should you want that. Overall, I am really happy with how it came out. Be sure to let me know in the comments which one you like best, and if you're curious on how to get this volume blow dry on your own for your own bob at home, you can check out this video right here where I show you just how I accomplished this look on myself. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye!